11th hour.
Tension's killing me.
I know.
Brutal.
I like your microphone, Sylvain. Very professional.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's ready for gems.
Oh, look at Thomas.
Yeah. Thomas
got
has a
the-
better setup because you don't see it.
I
Thomas.
think it's the same, actually. It's the same, no?
Is it a Yeti?
Yeah, I've got the Yeti blue.
I got the silver one.
Look at these guys comparing
Oh,
the size of their mics.
whose is bigger?
None of you using standard Apple MacBook headphones or earphones. Yeah, horrible.
I'm just
As long as it's not AirPods, usually it's good. AirPods, the sound usually is messed up.
The listening sound is good. It's the mic was messed up because it's not in the right place. All right, we're on.
Fantastic.
Okay, the numbers are rolling in.
They are.
I'll give it a minute and then we'll get started.
Welcome, everybody who's coming in.
Welcome, welcome. Perfect. I think it'd be a good time to kick off, but yeah, but before we begin, everyone, first of all, yeah, we're just seeing everyone just start to roll in. But before we begin, I just want to touch on a few housekeeping items. If anyone's got any questions, we just recommend adding them to the chat throughout the talks when they arise. We're expecting quite a few questions, just given the incredible interest in the topic. There's been well over 400 of you. So if you do have any pressing questions, you can either publicly share them in the chat or feel free to message myself, Darren Elliott, or James privately in the chat if you prefer to remain anonymous. We'll also be opening up the floor for questions just after the panel discussion. But it's also worth noting as well, we'll be sharing Thomas's upcoming presentation, as well as a 50% discount actually off a yearly Uptime subscription, which has been kindly invited by Hannah on the panel, which I'm sure we'll go into. But and now I think it'd be a good time. So yeah, but very warm welcome to everyone joining us today, and of course, you know, our speakers and panelists. AppsFlyer and Redbox Mobile are really excited to introduce you to today's topic, which is the rise of the subscription economy. We've got a phenomenal lineup today, just starting with Thomas Petit, who will introduce us to the topic from his wealth of experience as a consultant, and he specializes in, amongst other areas, in subscription apps. And we'll then have a discussion with our expert panel, just to hear different perspectives around subscription models and strategies, which is run by the wonderful James Salins, who's CEO of our partner, Redbox Mobile. So I think it's a good time, Thomas, for you to kick on. So if I will hand the mic over to you.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Let's see if I manage to share properly. And here we go. Are we confirmed? Yes, I think it's correct. All right. I'm just going to assume it is. I guess you can see my screen. Hi, everyone. The rise of subscription. I'd say even more specifically, the rise of subscription apps here, because subscription are entirely new. But my point today is that the subscription are taking over the app stores. We see it in the numbers. I mean, for a long time, the App Store were really gaming focused, but I think it's slowly changing, even if games are really big. So we're seeing big growth numbers here. And when we look actually at non-gaming revenue, I have these numbers from Appani that was a bit mind-blowing to me, that 96% of the non-gaming revenue comes from subscription now, which really took over like the paid apps we had a long time ago and so on. So it's really like after gaming, the biggest thing in apps these days. I have this particular example from last year from Strava that was on non-renewable IAPs and suddenly introduced subscriptions in Q2 last year, right, more or less during COVID. And their revenue just exploded. Like, I mean, they almost did 10x just after. Of course, they had built the community and all, but it was really, really impressive to see it in numbers. And it's just one of many examples. There are even bigger numbers, and we're starting seeing not just a few unicorns, but various apps that gets to these 100+ millions of revenue. I read Babbel has passed the 10 million subscriptions now. Very impressive. We'll have Sylvain showcasing some of the how. Really happy to have Sylvain here on board. But that's true for other in various verticals. Duolingo, Calm, Noom, Grammarly. So a bunch of examples are really, really big. Like it's not just like small startups growing, but actually really, really big business. We often think about entertainment and dating because they were the first ones, but now it's getting to pretty much every vertical. What I'm particularly thrilled about is we're seeing an ecosystem being built around it, like tools that support the apps that are going there through whether it's the data behind it. There are specific VC, there's learning around it, things to iterate on your paywall, like kind of a whole ecosystem of tools, intermediaries. There are specific investors, even specific consultant, which is what I do on subscription. So really a whole ecosystem behind. And here, besides all these numbers going up and to the right, I wanted to kind of introduce the topics that we wanted to discuss with the rest of the panel, looking at what's specific to subscription in sort of the pirate metrics model. I always started with retention because I think it's the most important, and going down from there. What I think is beautiful in the subscription model is that it really aligns interests of users and the developers. Not like you buy it once and then the developer is not really incentivized to keep building on top. But here, to keep your subscriber alive, you need to keep delivering value, new content, new features. I think it goes well to align developers and interests. So that's one of the beauty of it. And we're seeing a lot of verticals adopted. I think the mechanics of what works is actually slightly different between what I call content subscription, which can be video and music, but also news, books, and a bunch of other content-related apps and providers. Then what I call motivation, which would be health and fitness, meditation, app for kids, brain training, a lot of weight loss, and now a lot of mental health. I think it's really hot in this subcategory in a way. And what I call utility or productivity. Lots of apps to help you manage the day-to-day, from photo editors to showcase here Grammarly, PixArt, and so on. I think the tactics can vary a little bit between those three subcategories. They are common things for sure, and I hope we'll see some of them. And one of the main driver to retention, in my opinion, is how you activate users, how you onboard them, what experience you give them in the first time. And it's really a critical step to optimize on, basically because it's where you lose most users. I pulled up some AppsFlyer data here, but long story short, 80–90% of your user are probably going to churn within a week or months. So actually iterating a lot on what do they experience the first 10 minutes is usually where the low-hanging fruits are, because you lose users there, but also because this is where you make most subscriber. A lot of subscriber would start very early on. Some would even hard paywall. Netflix or Spotify do, no, Spotify not, but Netflix does hard paywall. I pulled a couple of the apps I was working with, and was unbelievable to see that half or so of all of subscriptions start in the very first session, really. So you really want to put a lot of focus and iteration on that part where you lose user and you make money. And to showcase briefly two tactics that some are employing. One is Noom. Has been a a very big success story that was very early on in the subscription business. And if you look at their onboarding, which might not be obvious on my slide, but it's a very long style of onboarding with over 50 screens where they ask you a lot of questions to personalize the experience. I've seen a lot of startups basically copying the onboarding because it's so good. A lot of mechanics, gamification, social proof, personalization that I think are really, really good. People would think 50 screens people drop, but it's actually very efficient. Like the completion rate is unbelievable. The opposite tactic would be to have a very short onboarding where you bring people to the wow moment, to the realization of the value. The example here I showcase is Photo Room, where in less than 4 clicks, you're seeing the core of the app, where it's an app that does a lot of things in photo editing, but has a super impressive background removal feature. And you open the app and in 4 clicks, you're seeing it with your own photo, which I believe is really well done and really effective as well. So you can be effective with completely opposite tactics. There's lots of ways to do that. There are 2 sites, there are more, but that I particularly love to have onboarding case studies, which are AppsFlyer and Growth Design. Very highly recommending these. You'll get the links after, but they're not only really great about showing specific screens and tactics and change, but the design of how they explain it is actually also really cool. Yeah. Next step is monetization. Once you activate them, eventually all companies need to make money from the subscribers. This is a subscription is basically about monetization, but it's also about the experience people have. And this year, I mean, it's not new, but this year I've been the amount of apps iterating on the paywall grow massively. This is really a hot topic on, we need to iterate a lot more on how we showcase the paywall, how we showcase the pricing, but every single element of it. That could be social proof, that could the benefits you show, that could be how the plans are displayed, lots of terms. I had a bit more details on that, but I prefer to leave some more space to discussion in the panel. There's so many things you can iterate there. It's crazy. But a lot of people start with iterating on the paywall and they focus too much on this one screen where you have to consider the whole experience. And one case that do that pretty well, I think, is Reflectly. That instead of thinking there's just one paywall, they think about the flow of paywall that people might experience. In this particular case, if you're not taking what's called an intro offer at the beginning, you can still continue. And later on, you will be exposed to a free trial, but not at the first time. If you still skip the free trial, you get exposed to a discount. So they slowly onboard people like this. I've got a very, very solid article about these flows from Jacob at Feature that is linked here that I highly recommend on not to think about there's just one paywall. It's how you can monetize at different steps of the experience, which was a really good example. And one of the best tactics I've seen about paywall is to actually think about the screen that is just before the paywall. I use this framework that was on Andrew Chen's blog by a guest post, I think, but that's called the Psych framework, where basically at the onboarding, you want people to start realizing the value before they even in the product. And I think thinking what people experience just before you're going to bring this paywall and the fact they have to pay is critically important. If I go back to the photo room example, the paywall comes up just after you have this moment of realization of, wow, this works so well. There are other ways to do this. Lingo Kids on the left of the screen show some social proof just before the paywall. On the right of the screen, Jour, a mental health and journaling app, is showing how your anxiety is gonna drop as you stay with the app just before the paywall. So to have like this thing, I really want it. Highly recommend reading the Psych framework and thinking you're onboarding through it, but psyching up people before the paywall is usually very efficient. And I'll end the monetization part on don't push it too much, in the sense that there are tactics that may raise revenue per user, but revenue per user is not the only criteria, because the more you push, the more you become aggressive with monetization, can lead to negative effect on retention and on virality and the organic baseline. I'm actually seeing now apps that have gone so far in monetization experiment go back a little bit and let the freemium experience be better to get all the benefits of users who don't pay but bring activity, network effects, virality, word of mouth, and eventually retention, which we all want. And seeing this graph that the more apps push the revenue per user, the worse their retention is, was kind of a bit of a realization to, when you think about monetization, think about the side effect and potential negative effect this might have. And last but not least, which is usually put first, but I like to think you need to think about acquisition after you've got the rest covered, then the leaky bucket fixed a little bit. And here, I mean, it's news to nobody that there was a huge change in the app world this year with Apple iOS 14.5 and now the attribution framework called SKAd Network. For subscription specifically, I think there were some good stuff, or at least not as bad as other people, in the fact that it was already IAP driven. So not as much impacted by CPMs on advertising. There could be mixed model, but store monetization is usually the main focus. And that we got a lot of subscription on the first day, which is helping a lot with SKAd network limitation. That doesn't take a lot of time to get even back to the platform. There's also bad stuff. It pushed to be very aggressive on paywall early on. It's hard to ask for people for opt-in because you're not personalizing ads at all. And I think what's the ugly one, maybe most importantly, is that if you optimize for day zero trials, it creates some blindness on the eventual revenue. I mean, what really matters is if people stick and renew and the lifetime value you make out of them, which becomes harder to calculate. That's true for everybody, but trials can be a bit specific on that. And the other one is there's no web to app measurement that is offered by Apple natively. And a lot of subscriptions actually use web to app. And I think it always existed. There were some pioneers, but it's really growing up. Two big pioneers on acquiring users on the web for apps are Babbel, but also Noom that I quoted before. And I think this is really one of the hot topic right now. We'll see that with the panel. I think we have something exciting from Uptime as well. In a way, I try to see it as the best of both worlds. Acquiring on the web has a bunch of benefits. Retaining in the app also has a lot of them through push, the fact you have the icon on the home screen and so on. But it's also a high effort and high impact initiative. So yeah, this was to like kind of open to hot topics that we're seeing in subscription. Now I want to open the floor to discuss some of them, some of the steps with News UK, Babbel, and Uptime, respectively, James, Sylvain, and Anna here. Super happy to be here with you. I hope this was a good opening for the discussion.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvain. That was great. So you've well, sorry, Thomas. Yeah. Sorry, Thomas. I'm getting confused with the accents. Right. Okay. That was a great intro. You covered a lot of the topics that we're going to be going into in a lot more detail now. So my name's James. I'm the CEO of Redbox Mobile. We are a mobile performance agency and also ad tech player with our own Apple Search Ads platform. But what I want to do is I'm going to go around and I'd like you guys to introduce yourself quickly. Hannah, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody, and thank you, James, and thank you to Redbox Mobile and AppsFlyer for having me here. I'm Hannah. I have been working with apps for about nearly 10 years now, and in subscription apps for the last kind of 5 of those. I'm currently working at Uptime, which is a knowledge hacking app. So we take books, courses, and documentaries and condense the key learnings and insights into 5 minutes. So you can really get, the essence and the bits that you really need to know. So we work with Yuval Noah Harari. We've got all of the New York Times bestsellers on there. We've got all the documentaries from Netflix, all of LinkedIn Learning, and you've got all of those amazing things. I've been running ads, running SEO, running ASO, all of these different things. So I'm very, very excited to talk to you today about what we've been doing for our onboarding and our subscription pop-ups and so on.
Great. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Sylvain, we'll come to you next.
Hey everyone, so I'm Sylvain. I work in growth at Babbel, language learning app. I'm also very much into mobile growth and for many years now. So I watch all those panels, webinars, and share some of the insights in a newsletter called Growth Gems. And that's what I do with my free time.
I'm looking forward to you to sharing some of these gems from this webinar itself, Sylvain. James, last but no means least, from News UK.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks, James. I was just listening to Hannah there saying how long she'd been in the industry, and then realized how old I am. So 17 years I've been in the industry. I've been previously at Marriott International, the hospitality company. Very different style app there, where it was really all about loyalty. Now I'm at News UK. I'm the head of performance marketing here at News UK. And we have numerous different apps. So from the Times and the Sunday Times, to wireless and our suite of sort of more audio apps, so TalkSport or Virgin Radio, to the Sun as well. So also the Sun app and Sun Cashback and Sun Racing. So a lot of apps that keep me and my team very busy here.
You are a really busy man. I know that firsthand. And Thomas is also going to be joining us within the panel. So we've got some great content coming up. I'm just going to get stuck right in. I'm going to be talking about something that Thomas already touched on, which is customer onboarding. I'm going to come to Hannah first, and the question is for the rest of the panelists as well. How are you designing the critical step of customer onboarding, and how are you, I think Thomas called it the aha moment, how are you getting people to that aha moment, or getting them to experience value so that they become a loyal user? So Hannah first.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. So with Uptime, we're actually approaching how we're doing subscriptions a little differently than I have with previous subscription products. And what we've actually done is, after you have your sign up, instead of hitting someone with a 7-day free trial, which is tied to their credit card immediately through the App Store and the Play Store, what we're doing is, allowing someone to subscribe immediately with a discount. But then if they don't want to, we're giving them a 3-day free unlimited access trial to everything, all of the features, every single bit of content with no limit. And then, what we're seeing is that we're still getting a lot of our subscriptions, a majority of our subscriptions on that day 0 as expected, but we're allowing people to experience that content as quickly as possible by unlocking it completely for everyone. So what we're also doing is, after that 3-day period, if you still haven't made up your mind, then we're offering everybody a 7-day free trial, which is tied to the App Store and the Play Store. So I haven't done anything like this before with any products, and I don't think I've seen this before with products, but we are seeing some really incredible results with it so far. So, we're continuing to optimize and continuing to do it. We did just introduce that 7-day free trial after the 3 days free about a month ago. So we're just constantly testing to see what's the best thing. We've also been experimenting with what the 3 days is. Is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? But 3 days seems to be a good amount of time to allow someone to really get to kind of know the product. And, if it's someone that's just downloaded the app and then kind of forgotten about it, if they are returning to it, then they do have that 7 days to catch them.
Great. I think you were being modest. You were telling me a couple of days ago that you, benchmarking wise, that you were best in class. So well done. I'm going to come to that question to James next, if you don't mind, James. What's your customer onboarding experience like, and how are you taking people to that aha moment?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll focus on the Times and the Sunday Times, which I think is probably the most relevant app. Similar to what Hannah mentioned, we do give people a free trial window, which is actually a month. So it was a week originally, but when COVID hit, there was a real need for credible, reliable, fact-worthy news. And we opened that up to a month to give people more time to enjoy that and actually experience that. So from the moment people sign up, it's incredibly important to nurture them. So not only do we have sort of, personalized welcome messages from our actual sort of journalists, we also, make them very aware of the benefits of the app and what you can do in the app. And if people have signed up on web, we very much try and push them into getting the app, because when someone starts to exhibit the behavior of using your app quite regularly, they tend to come back more often. So, both of those things, I think outside of that, we then try our best to make sure that people are aware of the different features and things you get with your subscription. So through having sort of a Times subscription, you would also get year-round rewards for our wine club as well. So for the Times Wine Club. From there, we've also got a lot of podcasts, so stories of our Times, the Times Daily News Briefing. We get free monthly ebooks, we have exclusive events. So it's all of these things, which is called Times Plus, that we wrap it up as. We make people aware of all of those, throughout their 1 month subscription, and really promote the benefits of being a Times customer. And then I think, the final thing, just to round it off, that we really make sure people have and share with them, is trying to personalize the content. So we see the content that people are coming in on, and be it via push notifications or sort of weekly emails of what you may have missed, and collating the content that they're perhaps going to find the most interesting. Ultimately, it's about the customer, and we've got to make sure that what we're showing to that customer is relevant to them, it's interesting, it's obviously credible because it's coming from the Times. But I think all of those things together help to really retain that customer and reduce the churn. And I think that's kind of the way that we go about it, and the job that we try to do to increase retention.
Thanks, James. That was really, really good. Really interesting to see that you adapted to the pandemic and actually made a positive change. And it looks like it's worked for you and your customers. So great. Sylvain, same question to you in terms of onboarding and getting people to perceive value.
Yeah. So in general, we identified the different steps to people becoming engaged users, etc. Language learning is not easy. It's something that requires discipline and basically showing up. So it's on both sides in a sense. So we try to get people to go through the steps, of course. But if we're talking about day zero conversion specifically, some of the wins have been on better conveying how Babbel helps users achieve their goal, the language content we offer, basically sharing the value props during that initial onboarding, and of course then engaging them as well.
Great. Thomas, you introed this, and we've had some feedback here. You got any comments before we move on to the next topic regarding onboarding?
we got great different examples of techniques. I think it's kind of like Hannah and James said in particular, like it's not only about showcasing what you have, but actually accompanying them all over the way. And I think here there are specific techniques that are really interesting in gamification, like starting to get there to open a streak of habits. I guess it's particularly important for language learning, but it is for subscriptions. And I think we had a few cases here. And when people don't do that step, like bringing them and getting that one step more, because the more they discover of the value, usually the more they stick. And so it's always a hard job at that time to not burn and churn people, but good examples from the other.
Yeah. So sort of related, obviously, I want to go into sort of monetization specifically now, and pricing and paywalls, etc. I want to know a bit more about how you price, how you test, how you're seeing what's working, when to show a paywall, when to offer a free trial to somebody who's not signing up. Sylvain, I know you've done a lot of testing. I'm going to come to you on this first. I'd really, really like to understand a bit more about how you do it at Babbel.
Yeah, and Thomas shared already some pretty great resources, but I think when you approach it, you want to look at your current subscription mix, if you offer different plans, and how it's been evolving also throughout the year. It's not necessarily true for all apps, but you might see some seasonality. And so you start there to try and understand, why you drive people to those plans. And then in terms of the order to look at it, for me, it's tricky, I will say, because everything's linked together. The subscriptions you show, do you have a free trial? What's the price? Like, it's all interlinked. If I had to choose, I would look at the different subscriptions you offer first, like durations, and then I will go to the prices and then figure out the free trial. But as soon as you add the free trial, everything changes also, and the duration of that free trial might also change things. So it's kind of a never-ending process.
So it's a never-ending process of A/B testing, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, and the A/B testing is possible if you have the traffic that allows you to do that. If you're early stage, it's going to be much more tricky. And then maybe it's best to start with what you see around you first, and then experiment from there.
Hannah, Uptime is a relatively new app, so it'd be great to share what you have, but also from previous jobs. I know you were previously at a subscription app company as well.
Absolutely. So Uptime actually just launched this year in January. So it's really new. And we started monetizing in April. So on launch, we launched with a founder offer, founder membership for £9.99 a year for life. So, with that kind of subscription to access, thousands and thousands of bits of content, it was obviously a no-brainer. People were taking this out dramatically, but it was, Sylvain, very good. That's what he got. So people were taking that out, and we knew that we had to increase our price because our standard price is £59.99 a year or $79.99 a year. So we eased that up. So what we did then is increase to a 50% off sale. So it was £29.99 per year. And when we did that, we saw that our conversion rate from install to paying dropped, which, no surprise, our ads were being optimized towards this $9.99 mark. Our users had come in, our customers were used to seeing that $9.99 paywall, and now it was saying $29.99. But, we started to kind of reprogram our algorithm, and then, everything went up. We were seeing our conversion rates, they got up to exactly what they were at $9.99 again. And then we were like, okay, this is stable. We'll double our price now. So we went up to our standard price of $59.99. And obviously, once again, our conversion rates dropped, but it's as expected. But then after, it took about a month, but now we've got back up to what we were seeing, so 5, 6, 7% install to payment rate, which is super high, especially for a brand new app. It's amazing, actually. The other things that we're doing are playing around with introductory offers. So we've got a 30% off introductory offer if you're subscribing in those first 3 days. We've been playing around with, as I mentioned, the 7-day free trial. We've got lots of things going on, and we're just constantly testing these. We've actually just now 2 weeks ago, I think, localized our pricing in India. So instead of it being £59.99 in India, we've reduced our price to the equivalent of £12.49 per year in India. So it's much cheaper there. It's an incredible deal, and we at Uptime, we're really focused on the democratization of education. So what we want to do is, make the app available for those who need it. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, we've just introduced web payments, which is how I've been able to offer everyone a code. We've built web payments. We released them last week. We've got codes. We released them last week. So you're the first people to use the codes, actually. And as a part of that, we'll be introducing student discounts, we'll be introducing Black Friday offers, New Year's offers, and things like that too, which we'll be able to run through the website. So, it takes a while, obviously, with a brand new product. The tech isn't there to begin with, but, you can prioritize and see what you need to do, but also whilst A/B testing, because you're almost never right to begin with.
So, I mean, you're testing a lot, and I love the idea of the democratization, especially in geos that maybe where they don't have so much money, likes of India, and hopefully that's successful for you. James, I don't want to preempt this, but I'm assuming you can't test as much as the other two panelists. Tell us a bit more about News UK and your strategy around maybe the Times or some other apps.
Yeah, sure. I think from a pricing perspective, we would, we're cautious to really sort of ever try and devalue the product. I think it's important that, we ensure that people know that they're getting quality. And sometimes if you continually reduce the price, people expect to see that. So we do try to avoid that as much as we can. But, ultimately, our customers fund the content that we can bring them and fund the journalists, etc. So in order to, they're essentially important. They're the most important part of the business. But if we were to increase the price, I think you have to look at the way that you do pricing, and it's not necessarily just increasing it. It's trying to give people the best offer you can. So if we were ever to, and we do a lot of sort of price testing, we wouldn't put it out to a whole cohort of customers. We'd first do the research and understand what people are willing to pay for something. And if they are willing to pay more, then they would want more with that. And that's understandable. So it's, what are you also offering additionally? So constantly improving the product. Recently for students, we have got a specific student pack, which is for people that have got like the NUS card or subscription. And we recently partnered with a company called Pelego, who are essentially sort of the Spotify of textbooks. So they've got 600,000 textbooks online that students can get with now their Time subscription. So, and that we never actually increased the price. We kept it at the same amount, but it just gives people more, and it's more about the retention as well. So I think from our side, if we are testing the price, we would firstly look at research to ensure, you will see conversion rate drop. If you go from a 1 month free to a pay up front, as Hannah mentioned, your conversion rate is going to drop. You just got to accept that. What you then got to look at though is long term. If my conversion rate drops up front, what does that do to my volume of subs? And the behavior that those subs exhibit in the first 2-3 months, from there, you can use we're very lucky here. We've got a very strong data analytics team who are able to look at those behaviors that people are exerting in the first 3 months and predict what their lifetime value is going to look like.
Yeah.
And very quickly, you can get an understanding of, you put a pack in market, so a new subscription model, release that to a small cohort of people, and then you can see from how they behave if that's going to impact, positively your revenue numbers in 12 months or not.
Great. There was a lot there to take in. This recording is going to be available to everyone that's signed up for the webinar anyway. So I'm definitely going to be listening to it again. It's great to hear about the continued democratization and the testing, etc. Just coming to you, Thomas. We haven't really heard a lot about people taking note of what their competitors are doing, or how strong their brand is in a specific geo. Do you think some of those factors will affect pricing and pricing model and etc.?
I mean, clearly the power of your brand and brand awareness have a huge impact on conversion. Like you can't compare a newly born app and somebody who's been 10 years in the market with a huge established brand. That definitely helps. But if you're starting and your cohorts are small, like I think Sylvain was the one who said it, just look at the big ones and start copying, because you can quickly get lost. One, there's so many elements you can test. Free trial now, 3 days, 7 days, 30, and then the price point, and then discriminating. It's a lot to take. So you might want to start, I'll copy a big one and I'll take it from there. But and also because you might not have the cohorts needed and the predictive team like James has behind. But then I would also call cautious about just copying and moving on, because sometimes we end up copying everybody else out. There's even what we call the count paywall and the Blinkies paywall and the this paywall that everybody knows are these models. And it goes to a point where I don't know if there's like something like a banner blindness or something, but you can sometimes bring some innovation. A recent one I've seen from an app called #expert, and I've got another one testing it right now, is the video paywalls. Like kind of usually paywalls are something that is very static, and videos are everywhere. People are on TikTok all day and say, hey, let's try to like kind of format this experience inside the paywall. They are good, probably not for everybody, but I like how they took the opposite of, okay, we've done like everybody. Now, what if we do something completely different? And sometimes you need to disrupt things to find new games. But if you're small and early, it's probably a reasonable choice to take things like patterns and take it from the experiment from there slowly, because it's actually pretty complex to experiment with this paywall. Yeah. It's not. It can yield big results, but it's not as easy as it looks.
It makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, I'm going to move us on to the topic of acquisition now. Obviously, we've had a earth-shattering, year in terms of what's been happening, not just the pandemic, etc., but obviously with iOS and iOS 14.5 and the introduction of SK Ad Network, etc. Post iOS 14.5 and the new privacy laws that this brings, I really want to know how you guys are coping with this, and how are you optimizing towards day zero trials and purchases, and how this has changed to what you were doing previously before. Sylvain, I'm going to come to you first again.
Yeah, I mean, we run a lot of our acquisition, not necessarily directly to the app. There's some channels where you have to be present, and especially the ones with user intent, the ones where your ads show in the store. So I might not be the best to answer that specific scan question.
Okay. Moving that on to Hannah then. What have you seen? What's performing differently post iOS 14.5, and how have you changed your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, everything really.
Everything.
There's nothing that isn't. I mean, some of the main things are that, you have to really, if you're going to be doing if you have to do ads, which we all do, we have to make sure that we're getting enough installs per campaign. So, it's still kind of a bit obscure, the exact amount of installs you need to be getting per day. Is it 60? Is it 100? Is it 128, which is now the number that seems to be going around? But you need to be hitting this privacy threshold, which means you have to account for more budget per campaign. You also need to leave things for a longer time. So, it's very stressful to kind of look and just like wait to see if you're getting any installs through, but you just have to be patient and see, and just see, you have to test your creatives in different ways, like just doing comprehension testing with people to make sure that they understand what you're promoting before you even put it live. Like we've been talking to our customers a lot and just pulling out exact bits of content from what they've said to be our ads, to let them do the talking for us really, and then putting those into our creatives so that we know that those things will resonate with people. We're also, more wholly just like concentrating a bit more on Android. Previously with subscriptions, I would normally be saying, oh, okay, Android, yes, our conversion costs are going to be much higher, but now with iOS 14, they're pretty similar, because of the attribution windows, because of the lack of transparency. So, we're experimenting a lot more with Android. We're putting our heads in the sand a little bit with iOS because that's all you can do. We're looking at blended numbers a lot more than ever before. So, as long as what we're seeing is we're spending X and the results are Y, and this number looks kind of consistent, you're not going to have full visibility anymore of what those numbers are. So as long as your blended numbers there are looking healthy, that's kind of what we're paying attention to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna change the question slightly for James then. So post iOS 14.5, what channels are you sort of banking on now? What what's changed? Where are you looking? And are there some places where it's a sure bet and others where it's getting very tricky? James?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think the channels change as much. It purely is the measurement. And I think Hannah's made very good points in terms of we're seeing a lot less. So to that degree, app tracking transparency becomes extremely important. If you can get someone to accept, that they're willing to share tracking with you, you'll get those numbers a lot quicker. I think if, to answer your question directly though, the channels, Google and Facebook were fairly slow to adopt this and to jump in and sharing back the data with sort of mobile measurement partners. I think Apple themselves obviously hold all of the keys here. They can still do a very, very good stuff. So Apple Search Ads is still a very decent channel to be looking at. I think the other thing is Android, to be honest. You have to somewhat, change your policy. You're not seeing as many events happening unless you hit that install threshold. So on iOS, you've essentially got to look at optimizing to install. And I think that's probably a smart strategy to get to that install number first and then be able to switch it. Another thing that's quite interesting is the event has to really happen within that 24-hour period. But opening an app is classified as an event if you set that up as such within Scan. So if you set up open as an event as quite a low priority in your Scan dashboard, when people do open that, if they're opening it multiple times, you reset the counter. So hopefully that gets you a few more sort of a bit more visibility of subs, for example, from our perspective. But yeah, I think, our strategy does have to change slightly. Apple do have the keys here, and whether that's, you optimize to installs on iOS and you continue optimizing to your subs on Android, or you go to, both to installs so you can actually sort of compare the data more easily. They're sort of things that everyone's looking at in the industry. And I think it's really important to mention, I said this to you, there's no right way to do it right now. Everyone's changing the goalposts almost. And, even Google and Facebook reacting quite slowly to this just shows you that it's all companies that have got to deal with this. And I'm sure there'd be people out there perhaps listening to the webcast that feel similar, that, it's sort of a playing field that we've got to carefully try and work our way through. We're learning on the job as we always are. But I think from my side, really, what I've mentioned there are the key things that I'd be thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely consolidation towards exploring Android more, doubling down on the likes of Apple search ads, etc., which we've seen as an agency, etc. Moving to you, Thomas, to close, to sort of close this topic. I'm very interested to know, and maybe a couple of the panelists can come on, in terms of how they've been experimenting or using the ATT prompt to see what percentage opt in. I mean, it's been fascinating speaking to clients and seeing the range of opt in from 10% to 30, 40%, etc. What have you heard about ATT and designing the ATTs and experimenting with the ATT prompts with clients?
Well, it's clear that having a higher opt-in rate helps, and it helps a bit on one side, on your side, like to confirm measurement and see how the cohort develop, because we don't have like full cohort view from Scan, so it gives you a bit of insight on that. I think the main reason to actually try to increase it is to give this platform more of the older signals, like more of these. One thing people confuse a lot with the opt-in is it's a double opt-in. Like the publisher side will need to be opt-in as well for the whole data flow to pass. So even if you're 70% opt-in, but you're advertising on an app that is barely 10%, you're still going to be relatively blind. So it's kind of an industry effort that everybody needs to push it up. I've seen people having success with different tactics, some of them prompting first thing in opening the app, which I was convinced was a terrible thing to do and actually worked for some. I've done a lot of pre-prompting, like kind of like Facebook does, among others, of explaining why you should opt in because it helps everybody. And I've seen actually a couple apps that decrease their opt-in rate by explaining the why, and just having a thing where it's just next was just more efficient. Yeah, it's kind of really tricky to detect patterns because I've seen stuff that worked for some others, not at all for some. Like it's a bit mind-blowing. So you have to play a little bit around it. It's still good to give a bit more. I'm working with a couple of apps who don't prompt at all. They say, no, we're not going to annoy user. And basically, they're starting the race from the back. Like, like it's kind of not helping, especially not helping the platforms. I mean, Google and Facebook are still pretty good at extrapolating from a small cohort, but you need to give them a little bit of ammunition there. And yeah, so fighting a bit around ATT to give that. I'll try to complete what the others have said that was brilliant about minimum scale, events, looking at first day and so on. A lot of people have shifted some attention to Android. A big trend is some people are shifting attention to acquiring on the web, like I mentioned in my presentation. I think, there were people doing it for a long time. Noom has 100% of his marketing budget on the web, even though it's an app. But I think it's growing. I'm seeing like even medium to small apps doing like, oh, we need to do more of that, even if the experience is still in the app. So I think that's really a big trend. And the other one is embracing uncertainty. there's a lot of players on iOS. You're not going to drop the ball entirely. Besides the ATT and the minimum volume, one thing is investing more in modeling, in media mix modeling, incrementality test. I'm working now with a partner called Incremental to just try to figure out what this little visibility we have mean. So more tooling. And the last one, just double down on creative, was true before, but the power of targeting being hindered on the platform side is what you showcase that is going to basically filter who are coming in. So yeah, that would be it. Minimum volume, diversifying, lots of data interpretation and creative. Obviously it raises complexity, makes it challenging. It's also it's the name of the game.
Before I move on from the idea of acquisition, I'm just going to bring Sylvain in because we are sort of rapidly running out of time. I could do with a 2-hour webinar, to be honest. But Sylvain, I want to talk to you about web to app acquisition because I know you've had quite a lot of success there. What can you tell us about what you do and your recommendations for people who may not be doing it if they have a mobile app subscription app?
Yeah, and not to divert the question, but I've heard Android a lot, and moving to 15% fees, I don't think that's going to change anything. If anything, it kind of changes the status quo a little bit. But the caveat I see, there's many caveats for web, and it's been shared. Like there's a lot of complexity. One caveat I see is that you can't control where people go. Like you can influence it. But in the end, you can't really control it. And you see it a lot with offline spend. You have TV ads, radio ads, podcast ads. You can say, go to Babbel.com. But some people, they don't care. They'll type Babbel.com in the App Store or Babbel. So you can't control. That's one caveat that I think we don't hear enough. Some people just trust Apple or just think app and go to the App Store, which makes sense. In terms of the recommendations, if you get started, I mean, we've had web acquisition pretty much from day one, so we might be in a different scenario. But I will say that starting with one channel, one funnel, let's say Facebook, and not necessarily making that web acquisition available on the general website. I think that's a good way to start optimizing it, having more control and understanding who's really coming into that funnel. And then from there, you can add other channels. Okay. The other one is that you might see a better LTV for the web, even if you run promotions, which is a big plus of the web acquisition, I think, that Anna mentioned. So you might see that better LTV, but you also want to look at those conversion rates and the whole funnel to make sure that it is viable.
I'd like to bring in James on this point, just because I know he's got a different take on it. From the LTV perspective, you're seeing the opposite, right? Web versus app.
You do, yeah. Sorry, I was just answering someone's question there in the chat. So essentially, from there's a lot of benefits to getting someone into the app, and yes, we do. You do pay the fees, right? Which is definitely a drawback. But for a company like ours, there are reductions in costs. For example, from call center savings, people not calling up the call center because they're able to get to just subscribe in the app. But the lifetime value, I think, of our app users compared to the web users, we see less churn with people that are using the app more consistently, and overall lifetime value does increase compared to people that are just on the web. So I think that you build that habit with people, you get them coming back, you really ingrain them within your brand.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna we need to shift now, right? Okay, we're going into retention now. Yeah, massive topic. I think more than ever now, where we're in 2021. It's difficult and costly to acquire new users. So I think the old adage of making sure that your current user base keeps loyal is business critical, more business critical now than ever. So with regard to CRM and email and push notifications, etc., I'm going to bring in Hannah. Can you give us some examples during the history of your career in terms of CRM campaigns that have worked? What works, what doesn't work? What would you suggest people trial?
Absolutely. So, I mean, in terms of CRM, and as you say, activating a customer that you already have is so much cheaper than acquiring and then activating a new customer. So, this is related to how Thomas was saying, retention is, so important. Activation is so important. So when we're thinking about retention, activation through the comms that we're having with our customers, a lot of this, we have our transactional messages, we have our churn focused messages, but a lot of it, I try to focus on relationship building. So some of the most successful campaigns that we've run in the past through email, for example, has been, all about that relationship building. Towards the beginning of the pandemic last year, I started sending out a daily email to the customers of the previous company I was working with an antiviral, firstly a coronavirus daily update and then an antiviral update. This email was daily, as I mentioned, and it had a 50% open rate every single day to thousands and tens and thousands of people. It was an opt-in only email, and it was constantly just getting updates. And, all we were doing was saying, today I went for a walk, because people were just looking for a connection. I did the gardening today and I was listening to this, or whatever, to build that connection whilst people were feeling more isolated than they ever have before. And at the same time, what we saw was that our conversion rates almost doubled. We were getting people constantly writing into us. They were shouting out the newsletter, like the newsletter campaign on LinkedIn, on Twitter, across the board. When we stopped sending it, we had a lot of people complaining. We had so many people writing in saying, please keep sending it. But, writing a daily email in a small team is just a lot of work. And we had other things to focus on after sending it out every month, every day for 2 months. What we're doing now with Uptime, we've just started to really implement our emails. So we're starting, with building that relationship. We're starting with a very, accessible language to communicate with our customers, starting with our transactional email. So a welcome email, subscription confirmation. And then the other things I like to use them for is, thank you emails. If someone takes out a subscription, we send a thank you from the founder. If someone has taken out a trial and they're not using it, then we ask them, in a plain text email, how can we help you? Like, is there something that you're struggling with? Is there something that you're looking for? Because, has multiple benefits from, warming up your domain to actually building connections with customers. So if you're getting those replies and you're building those connections, then you can jump on the phone with them. You can find out a bit more about who they are and what their psychology is. In terms of push notifications and in-app messages, obviously these are super important. So we're sending little badges onto people's app screens so that, even just sending that badge will get more people back into your app. So, I think these are more important than ever. And some companies might have got a little bit lazy with them, thinking, we can just constantly be acquiring new users. But, now when we're bringing someone in, it's costing more, it's harder to do anything with them. It's harder to retarget them with ads even. So what we want to do is just make sure that we're making the most out of them and also giving them the best experience possible. Great.
I want to bring in Sylvain. And the reason I want to bring you in, Sylvain, is I know that language learning, I know from my side, learning language is horrifically tough. So how do you keep people engaged and not churning the Babbel way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to those key steps, that you try to get people to do in the app, and then using those out of app communications to get them there. And for us, it starts with your first lesson, right? Some people will download the app and not necessarily do those first lessons or not consume all the different ways we have to learn the podcast or try the live classes. And so it's about trying to push users to that in the order that we believe works the best. That's for Babbel, and something that I've seen in several apps, because one of my favorite pastime is to download apps and go through their onboarding and first experience, is that I've seen a lot of challenges for motivation apps, like a 7-day challenge or 30-day challenge, where you try to keep people going with their streak.
That totally makes sense. And I've used language apps, and really getting people to that next day and getting them to do the next lesson, etc., is key. Thanks very much. We're sort of running out of time, but Thomas, anything to add on the CRM and retention side?
I've got lots to add, but maybe we move on because they already had great answer,
okay.
and so we can take a couple more. Well, for sure, I have things to add. You can ask me later if you don't drop.
So I'm gonna skip a couple of questions. Maybe we'll have time to get onto it in the question period. But we've learned a lot from all of you. But what I want to, if you can distill this down, if you were speaking to a person who was just about to launch their first subscription app, what is the one piece of advice that you'd give them? James, I'm coming to you. What would it be? What would your nugget be?
Oh wow, I don't know how much of a nugget it is, but really work on the product. Make sure the product is solid and top. And I think we mentioned it before, but that includes having the foundations in place from a tracking perspective. We mentioned the ATT prompt. Try and be smart about it. I think what Thomas said earlier about someone coming up with the reason we're doing this and explaining all of that perhaps doesn't get people accepting it. It's probably better just to be like, move on, accept. So I think really your product, make sure it's solid before you launch. Don't do a soft launch with a subpar product.
Cool. Hannah.
So I'd say, the most important thing when launching a subscription product or any product is talking to your customers and really understanding what they want to achieve with it. So, and I don't mean sending out a survey to people. I mean, really getting on the phone with people, understanding what they are trying to achieve, what they were looking for when they found your product, and then really building the product that they want to use so that, then if you can do that, then they'll have no other option but to subscribe. So, really get to know your customers, build that connection, and just understand their psychology.
Brilliant. Sylvain, you've got loads of growth gems. Come on, give us some.
Yeah, I mean, I will echo product and talking to users, of course, but to complement, and that's what Thomas mentioned in the beginning, like you want to start with retention, and the acquisition you run, I believe, is just so that you have enough users to work on that retention and on that early onboarding and first experience. Don't go crazy thinking that you have everything figured out and waste your money.
Very sound advice. Thomas, do you want to come in on that?
Mine kind of, I think, encompass all three. I was about to say, play the long game. Don't look for the hack. Don't look how to double your conversion and screw up everything around the brand retention and everything. But playing the long game means you bet on the product first. You'll care about acquisition later. That's the easy part. It means you talk to your customer because you actually develop what they actually want and not your weird vision that nobody wants to buy, which is a very frequent error. And you're looking at retention. I mean, sometimes when I'm asked to join companies or even as client, I'm like, show me your retention curve first. If I'm seeing that 98% churn in 48 hours, I'm like, I don't want to do acquisition for you. It's never going to work. So yeah, my advice is play the long game, which impacts everything. If we look back at what we say into this panel, even for pricing, even for all of it, look at the long game. Don't look for but yeah, money is pressure and we want the next quarter and so on. This is exactly the way to fail if you're launching a new one. Look very far ahead when you make decision.
Okay, it's been a fantastic panel. I've learned lots, which I was hoping to do. So thank you very much. You're all experts within your field, and I think as a group of four, it's been a revelation. What we want to do now is, and I'll do this with Darren in association with Darren. We're going to open up to a few questions from the floor. There was one that caught my eye, which I think was quite nice, which is. How do you view subscription apps? Do a lot of people see them as a considered purchase, and are they doing a lot of research and comparing apps in the same vertical, etc.? Or quite often is it an impulse purchase? So the question came from Federico Lano, and he basically said, is a subscription more like a chocolate buy or a laptop purchase? Who can I bring in there? Who wants to take that?
I'll just say chocolate.
Chocolate?
Yeah.
So impulse, right? You
Mostly.
like the look of it. You like the look of it. You fancy doing it. Do it. Anyone else got a different view with the likes of the Times, for example? Is that a considered purchase, or does somebody just go in?
Sorry, James. I was going to say I've got to drop because I'm hosting a team meeting, but I will answer this before I leave. To me, I believe it's an impulse. The way that people want to consume the news, they want to read credible information, and they come to an article, and the only way to actually view that with the Times is to subscribe for a 1 month free. So I think they impulsively are like, I really want to read this.
Okay,
so that's what I think.
James, we'll let you drop. I'm sure Rupert Murdoch has got tabs on you, so we'll let you drop.
Thanks for hosting this. It's been great. Thanks all. Bye.
Okay. That question I'd be interested to know. Did Sylvain and Hannah? It's coming very much down the apps are an impulse purchase.
Well,
what do you think?
Just based on the data that Thomas was showing before, we know that day zero is so important for conversions, and that really leads itself into and lends itself to the idea that it is an impulse buy. Constantly what we see, especially with 7-day free trial products, like upfront 7-day free trial, you'll see that so many of the conversions come within the first 2 minutes of installing the app and creating an account. And that 2 minutes doesn't seem like a considered I'm buying a Ferrari buy. It's like, okay, I'll take out the 7-day free trial and see what this is about. So it is really an impulse buy, definitely. There are people who are a bit more considered, and actually I do see a difference between iOS and Android. And with iOS, I do find it to be a bit more of an impulse buy, but on Android, I do see a bit more of a lagging conversion. So they're a bit more looking for that laptop.
Sylvain, I'm going to come to you with a different question. Given that we're rapidly heading into the holiday season, I'm interested to know what Babbel will do around Black Friday. You're not an e-commerce app, but are you going to have a Black Friday promotion, and has it typically worked? And also, actually, but to both of you as well, how important is gifting within subscription apps for loved ones and friends? Is this on the rise, and how do you encourage it?
Yeah, I mean, for Black Friday specifically, I think there's lots to learn from retail and e-commerce. But when you're talking, about Babbel, in our case, we have a Black Friday offer because I think people expect it, but we don't do a push, like a big push around it, during this time, because it's super competitive. It's going to get super competitive, so it might not be the best time. Now, if you're talking about holiday like Christmas and things like that, and gifting in general, or Mother's Day, Father's Day, something that's been really, really working great for us is what we call Babbel as a gift, where basically we allow people to gift a subscription to their friends, to their family, and it's a really like meaningful thing, because it can be life-changing, right? To learn a new language, and it also has that last minute possibility where, well, if you don't have a gift for someone, you can also get it last minute. It's digital, so it's both meaningful and practical, and that's been working really well for us.
Hannah, I think gifting is important to you as well, right?
Absolutely. We will be doing a Black Friday offer, but gifting itself, definitely. With my previous subscription company, gifting made up about a third of the sales through December that we had, which was huge. And obviously a lot of those were from existing customers. So it was, just getting our customers who are already with us to buy more for their friends. Although there was a lot of bulk buying and things like this too. People would write in and say, I want to buy 20 of these for everyone I know. For example, with Uptime, we are actually launching gifting for anyone who wants to send a gift in a week's time, in time for Christmas. So we're expecting there to be a big uptake on that, and we'll be promoting that quite considerably throughout Christmas. So
okay, I think we're probably getting the signal to wrap up. So I could do this for ages, and I'm sure you guys could as well. So I just want to really, really thank everyone. I think it's been brilliant. I think your insights at the top, Thomas, were great. Long may you be a mobile growth expert. And thanks very much to Sylvain, Hannah, and James, who's had to drop as well. Darren? handed to you.
I feel like the party pooper coming in at the end, but and you could probably have a trilogy of
The
these.
Grinch.
Yeah, you could probably have a trilogy and still only cover about a third of the content. But yeah, look, thanks everyone. It's been a phenomenal discussion today. We've had some great questions. As I mentioned, just for the group who are here, we will be sharing Thomas's presentation and a recording online, and as well as a 50% off discount, as Hannah's referred to on the yearly Uptime subscription. So definitely check that out. If any of you've got any questions, please feel free to get in touch with James or myself. We're absolutely happy to answer those. But yeah, thanks to everyone. It's been a phenomenal discussion, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.